Episode 17. The Queen was dreadfully fat and had a double chin and a fat powdered face, which isn't a very nice thing at the best of times, and of course looks much worse when it is 10 times too big. Then the king put out his tongue and licked his lips. Now, anyone might do that, but his tongue was so very large and red and came out so unexpectedly that it gave Jill quite a shock.
"Oh, what good children," said the Queen.
Perhaps she's the nice one after all, thought Jill.
Yes, indeed, said the king. Quite excellent children. We welcome you to our court. Give me your hands.
He stretched down his great right hand, very clean and with any number of rings on the fingers, but also with terrible pointed nails. He was much too big to shake the hands which the children in turn held up to him, but he shook their arms.
And what's that?
Asked the king, pointing to Puddleglum.
Respectable,
said Puddleglum.
"Oh!"
Screamed the Queen, gathering her skirts close about her ankles.
"The horrid thing! It's alive!" "He's quite all right, Your Majesty, really he is," said Scrubb hastily. "You'll like him much better when you get to know him. I'm sure you will."
I hope you won't lose all interest in Jill for the rest of the book if I tell you that at this moment she began to cry. There was a good deal of excuse for her. Her feet and hands and ears and nose were still only just beginning to thaw. Melted snow was trickling off her clothes. She had had hardly anything to eat or drink that day, and her legs were aching so that she felt she could not go on standing much longer. Anyway, it did more good at the moment than anything else would have done, for the Queen said,
"Oh, the poor child! My lord, we do wrong to keep our guests waiting. Quick, some of you, take them away. Give them food and wine and baths. Comfort the little girl. Give her lollipops. Give her dolls. Give her physics. Give her all you can think of. Possets and comforts and cataways and lullabies and toys. Don't cry, little girl, or you won't be good for anything when the feast comes."
Now, Jill was just as indignant as you and I would have been at the mention of toys and dolls, and though lollipops and comforts might be all very well in their way, she very much hoped that something more solid would be provided. The Queen's foolish speech, however, produced excellent results, for Puddleglum and Scrubb were at once picked up by gigantic gentlemen-in-waiting, and Jill by a gigantic maid-of-honor, and carried off to their rooms. Jill's room was about the size of a church, and would have been rather grim if it had not had a roaring fire on the hearth and a very thick crimson carpet on the floor. And here delightful things began to happen to her. She was handed over to the Queen's old nurse, who was, from the giant's point of view, a little old woman almost bent double with age, and from the human point of view, a giantess small enough to go about an ordinary room without knocking her head on the ceiling. She was very capable, though Jill did wish she wouldn't keep on clicking her tongue and saying things like,
"Oh, la la, up's a daisy, and there's a duck, and now we'll be all right, my puppet."
She filled a giant foot bath with hot water and helped Jill into it. If you can swim, as Jill could, a giant bath is a lovely thing. And giant towels, though a bit rough and coarse, are lovely too, because there are acres of them. In fact, you don't need to dry at all. You just roll about on them in front of the fire and enjoy yourself. And when that was over, clean, fresh, warmed clothes were put on Jill. Very splendid clothes, and a bit too big for her, but clearly made for humans, not giantesses.
"I suppose if that woman in the green kirtle comes here, they must be used to guests of our size," thought Jill.
She soon saw that she was right about this, for a table and chair of the right height for an ordinary grown-up human were placed for her, and the knives and forks and spoons were the proper size too. It was delightful to sit down, feeling warm and clean at last. Her feet were still bare, and it was lovely to tread on the giant carpet. She sank in it well over her ankles, and it was just the thing for sore feet. The meal, which I suppose we must call dinner, though it was nearer tea-time, was cock-a-leekie soup, and hot roast turkey, and a steamed pudding, and roast chestnuts, and as much fruit as you could eat. The only annoying thing was that the nurse kept coming in and out, and every time she came in she brought a gigantic toy with her. A huge doll, bigger than Jill herself, a wooden horse on wheels, about the size of an elephant, a drum that looked like a young gasometer, and a woolly lamb. They were crude, badly made things, painted in very bright colors, and Jill hated the sight of them. She kept on telling the nurse she didn't want them, but the nurse said,
Tut, 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 you want 'em all right when you've had a bit of rest. I know. Betty bye now, a precious poppet.
The bed was not a giant bed, but only a big four-poster, like what you might see in an old-fashioned hotel. And very small it looked in that enormous room. She was very glad to tumble into it.
Is it still snowing, nurse? She asked sleepily. No, raining now, ducky, said the giantess. Rain'll wash away all the nasty snow. Precious Poppet will be able to go out and play tomorrow.
And she tucked Jill up and said good night. I know nothing so disagreeable as being kissed by a giantess. Jill thought the same, but was asleep in 5 minutes. The rain fell steadily all that evening and all the night, dashing against the windows of the castle, and Jill never heard it, but slept deeply, past supper time and past midnight. And then came the deadest hour of the night, and nothing stirred but mice in the house of the giants. At that hour there came to Jill a dream. It seemed to her that she awoke in the same room and saw the fire sunk low and red, and in the firelight the great wooden horse. And the horse came of its own will, rolling on its wheels across the carpet, and stood at her head. And now it was no longer a horse, but a lion as big as the horse. And then it was not a toy lion, but a real lion, the real lion, just as she had seen him on the mountain beyond the world's end. And a smell of all sweet-smelling things there are filled the room. But there was some trouble in Jill's mind, though she could not think what it was, and the tears streamed down her face and wet the pillow. The lion told her to repeat the signs, and she found that she had forgotten them all. At that, a great horror came over her, and Aslan took her up in his jaws. She could feel his lips and his breath, but not his teeth, and carried her to the window and made her look out. The moon shone bright, and written in great letters across the world or the sky, she did not know which, were the words, "Under me." After that the dream faded away, and when she woke very late next morning, she did not remember that she had dreamed at all. She was up and dressed and had finished breakfast in front of the fire when the nurse opened the door and said,
"Here's Pretty Poppet's little friends come to play with her."
In came Scrub and the Marshwiggle. "Hello, good morning," said Jill. "Isn't this fun? I've slept about 15 hours, I believe. I do feel better, don't you?"
"I do," said Scrub, "but Puddleglum says he has a headache.